Welcome, 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 welcome. Another episode of On the Bench, live YouTube episode as well. So thank you for all you people listening in your cars, your cubes, maybe grilling some burgers, cooking some dogs, firing up some nice glizzies on the grill. We thank you for your audio listen, and for all the people subscribed to the YouTube channel, thank you so much. You're watching us live, and you get all four of our faces live and in living color. We are back. I'm here with Coach Adam Brown, Brendan Sonnone, and my film guy, Kevin Little, to talk about the final. We have made it to the final countdown, the final top 10 most important players for Florida State of the 2024 season. Gentlemen, it's been a fun ride. Feathers have been ruffled. Opinions have been challenged. Friendships have been strengthened. Divides have been divided further. It's been action, suspense, and drama. And I think tonight we will continue that. I cannot wait to get through it with you boys. I am amped up, but first, let's do a little house cleaning. Let's talk about our wonderful sponsors. Let's talk about Chattanooga whiskey. That's right. Listen, it's the 4th of July. It's America's birthday. So what you drink this weekend is a direct reflection on you as an American citizen. What are you going to do? Are you going to be a disgusting, queen-loving royal and drink gin? Ew. Are you going to be a disgusting Russian? I mean, they're invading Ukraine right now. You're going to drink vodka on 4th of July? That's disgusting. Why don't you drink the best brown stuff that you can from an American whiskey company? And that is Chattanooga whiskey. It is the best by far. It is a craft distillery, yet all their options are affordable. Their 111 proof is the absolute pinnacle of bang for your buck premium whiskeys. They've also got all those wonderful craft things and expensive and fine mahogany ports in barrels and things that I don't understand because I'm not a carpenter like my friend Brendan. He knows that it's good hooch and he stands by it. And Brendan's name is gold. So if you want to get blasted on 4th of July responsibly, do it on Chattanooga whiskey. And like I always say, what's the best thing to do when you're all liquored up and shooting off pyrotechnics? It's sell your house. Get in the real estate market. Do it for the Turner Group. If you go, listen, if you're going to drunk sell your house, the only people that can handle your belligerent ass is the Turner Group. They're based out of Central Florida, but they cover the entire state. It's a husband and wife team, and they are professional. They are quick, and they will handle your home with the dignity and the care that your home deserves. Buy, sell, trade, lease, pawn, it doesn't matter. If you've got real estate, the Turner Group is the people that you need to talk to, and they will help you out. Drink Chattanooga whiskey, go to the Turner Group for real estate purposes. And I'm not done yet because we have a sale. It's a firecracker of a sale. Literally, it's called the Firecracker Trademark Register Copyright Trademark Sale for Noles247.com. That is right. If you want to be a member of the Noles247.com board, you can use this firecracker sale, which kudos to the marketing team, that nice synergy between firecracker and 4th of July. I know that took a long time to just totally come up with. Genius level, next level 4D chess brains here at 24/7 Sports. And you can be a member for how much of your first month? How much, guys? Your first month costs what?
$1.
That's right, chicken man. $1. It costs $1. $1 for that first month. And then guess what? The annual subscription, we don't care about profit margins here. We just care about getting you in the door.
Whoa.
Cut it in half. The corporate people, don't listen to that, please. But 50% off. You're stealing money from the company. And legal theft is totally cool and fun. I mean, that's why everybody plays Grand Theft Auto. You want to feel like a criminal and have none of the consequences. That is why you need to take advantage of this deal, because you're stealing money from us. Firecracker sale. Drink whiskey. Sell your house. Turner Group. Whiskey Chattanooga. Sign up for Noles247.com. Take advantage of the deal. Whew. All right, let's get into the list.
You ready?
Yeah, I am. I like the silence is emanating.
And we lost AB. Yeah.
Adam had to go towel off. I know the ad read was good, but that's okay. Kev, let's pull up the old spreadsheet while the big man wipes himself off from all that ad-induced perspiration. We ended at number 11, Earl Little Jr., and we get into linebacker, a very fun topic for everybody right now. Nobody's talking about linebackers at Florida State. We are talking about number 10, He at Colorado, not at Colorado, back to the promised land. That is DJ Lundy. And this is a guy, when you talk about development, other than like Jordan Travis, like the story on player development in the Mike Norvell era, it's hard to pick a player who's a better encapsulation of that, in my opinion, the linebacker DJ Lundy. And he is vitally important to this team this year. Zach Blostein had him as number 7. Adam had him as 15th. Brendan 9th. Kev 15th. Chris Nee 10th. I had him at 7th as well. Dane 9th. Clay 6th. Adam, you had him a little bit lower than the group. I mean, this is the one guy in that linebacking unit that is the only real sure thing that Florida State has. Why do you have him 15th? Is it a function of DJ as a player or a function of the position in the defense?
I think that he's a good player. I don't know if he's quite like Kalen DeLoach caliber or even Tatum Bethune when he's fully healthy caliber player. So that's part of it. And then I also I devalue linebackers to a degree. I was aggressive with a lot of them throughout this because I think they're going to play more different personnel packages defensively this year. So I think that there's some increased value for that position for the upcoming season. But overall, like I push some skill players ahead. I pushed a guy like Earl Little Jr. Like I think that nickel role is more important than a linebacker for them.
By one spot, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, I just don't. The linebacker position as a whole, I don't think makes or breaks your defense. So I just it tends to get bumped down a little bit for me.
I agree with you too, but with Florida State's going to need to be a good run stopping unit because I don't know, the pass rush ability is kind of be by committee a little bit. You're losing like some really like positive, talented dudes like Braden Fisk and Jared Verse. And we've seen Florida State's linebacker unit, not so much last year, but years before, get kind of picked on in the running game, specifically with like double teams and pulling and things like that. And they've been contact sponges. Mm-hmm. But you think that this year you're not worried about that unit so much as far as being like a linchpin of the run defense?
Well, because I think your linebacker core is only going to be as good as your defensive tackle group in front of it, and really your D-line as a whole. So I think that what's going to happen in front of them is way more important than what's they're doing necessarily.
Fair enough. Brendan, what do you think? What do you think about DJ Lundy's transformation? What do you think about his quality as a player, how he stacks up with some pretty impactful linebackers of the past year, Tatum Bethune and Kalen DeLoach?
On his improvement, the point you made initially, Trey, I thought was a really good one because like the year-over-year growth for him has been really remarkable. And if you go back to like 2020 when he was a true freshman, and even in 2021 when he still had a fairly prominent role as a rotational guy, I think then there were fans who didn't want to see him on the field because he was such a liability in coverage. His PFF grade as a freshman was 53.5, then it went up to 56.7, took a leap last year to 74.6, and then finally 78.3 this past year. So like year-over-year growth to go from like a below-average player at the position to someone who's legitimately above average and good and awesome at stopping the run, and someone you didn't really have to worry about a ton. Like he was on the field as much in third and long situations as Tatum Bethune was last year. So like he wasn't this liability that they had to hide. Now, whether he's able to stay out there like every single play as a full-time starter and go up from like 400 snaps to 600, I think that's kind of the big question mark on the value that he brings this season. But like the point I would push back on with AB is the fall off from the known commodity that DJ Lundy is, at least capable. You know he's going to be good against the run, might be average against the pass this year, to like what else is there? I'm surprised you're as low as you were, AB. Just he's
that's the only reason I ranked him at 15, if I'm being completely honest.
Well, okay. So you have him as high up as 15 because of what Brendan said, that who's behind him. That's the characteristic of importance that I think makes everybody's rankings a little bit different. How much you value just how important they are to the group that they're in, not necessarily if they're one of the best players on the team. If the linebacker room was stacked, let's say if DJ Lundy, Adam, had a really solid running mate, like let's say DJ Lundy was playing next to like a Tatum Bethune this year, where would you have DJ Lundy ranked on your list?
I don't know. I'm trying to look up who I got like around him.
Just like hypothetically, like at the range, like hypothetically.
Yeah, I mean, probably a few spots lower. I mean, not ridiculous lower because he's a starter for your team. I mean, so not going to bump him out of like, below 22, but probably in that ballpark. I just don't. I think linebacker is one of the least important positions on this defense.
So everybody should be totally cool with the recruiting then.
Well, isn't this kind of an indictment in like people who watched the OTB episode before this? Like,
Don't set me up, Trey.
I was just talking, man. I'm just talking.
but that is like part of the issue with the room is you need DJ Lundy to be as good as you think he's going to be, and you can't afford for him to not be that or to miss any kind of significant amount of time because of the unproven commodities of the position that has not been recruited very well. And we think Randy Shannon can like develop, like DJ Lundy growth is there. It's evident.
Every linebacker.
Yeah, everyone. Tatum Bethune, Kalen DeLoach had career years under him back-to-back seasons. Like everyone's gotten better. So like, and that's what the staff values. But you're also seeing like this, there was a void in recruiting talent until last cycle, the previous cycle with Blake Nicholson and Justin Cryer. And you're kind of seeing that come home to roost. I think you've had to go to the transfer portal to try to supplement that a little bit, but like, you know, there's not the known commodities that there've been the past few years. I don't know. I think that's the whole like crux of the issue is like the recruiting has not been good enough for an FSU standard, and you're one injury short of it potentially being like, I don't know if I want to say disaster, because some of these guys might actually get better to the point where you can throw them out there consistently. But you guys remember better than I do, I'm sure. Like 2021 linebacker group was a real weakness, and the whole defense as a result was problematic at times.
The thing is, but then 2022, you think, well, you're like, you weren't optimistic about the room. You were losing, you like lost Amari Gaynor. You brought in Tatum Bethune, and he was just a 3-star transfer out of UCF. And, you know, they take steps up because all of the players took steps up. And you end up having a pretty decent linebacker room in 2022 and a really darn good linebacker room in 2023, despite not having that. So the question is like, how much can you get away with?
And I'm with you.
I'm flirting with it. I feel like
I think they're a far cry from 2021 with what's in this linebacker room. Like I know Juice Cryer can go plug a gap if I need him to. Like I know
this is more like 22 to me.
Like I know that you don't have to play Amari Gaynor at the star position because you've got a legit nickel and Earl Little and other guys that could go play there. Like, they've recruited this position like crap.
Like what?
I'm not allowed to get on the recruiting takes. I'm not allowed to do that, so I'm going to avoid all that. But they haven't done a good enough job there. That's very well known. But I still think that they've got enough of a floor with the guys there. Like, you don't want to lose DJ, but if you don't have DJ, I think you can still get some sort of floor level of play that's going to be okay. Like, it's not going to just completely derail your defense. It's not going to help. There's going to be issues. There's going to be things you're going to have to mask. But there were a lot bigger issues in like 21 and 22. You couldn't stop the run with your defensive line because you only had like 4 guys. Well, maybe that's going to be an issue again, but I think that's more makes a Daryl Jackson more important or a Josh Farmer more important or Marvin Jones Jr. or whatever than some of the linebacker guys that you're looking at. Well, I mean, we do think that Blake Nicholson's probably going to take a step forward. I mean, you certainly were optimistic throughout spring talking about him, Brendan, that he was making some strides. We know that they like Juice Cryer. I'm banking on Cam Riley making some plays in sub packages, and we've seen what he can do as a coverage guy. Like they didn't have a guy that could drop to the flats or hook curl in 21. They didn't have anybody that could even do that.
Syracuse just wrecked.
They've at least got that position.
Now.
Yeah, but they have that. But that's when they were a bad team.
Glance routes off the RPO, like. At least got guys that can get underneath those.
Well, to bring it back to kind of tie the recruiting back to like the DJ Lundy's importance. To me, with the recruiting stacked up over the past couple of years, they've really reduced the margin of error for this position to where I find that to make DJ Lundy more important to me, because without him, I don't know that you have linebackers who are better than 21 and like, I don't know about 22, but this is a good football team now. This isn't the 2021 Florida State Seminoles. This is coming off a 10-win and a 13-win season.
Right.
So DJ Lundy goes down. I'm not necessarily sure that you have the linebacker core to field a good defense. And this is a good team. This is a program now. This is one where you can't afford a 7-win season or a step back. So that's how it kind of seems to me. But I'm with you, Adam. They could hit on some of these guys, but I really wish they'd have a room full of more elite talent to kind of take some chances there. They've really reduced margin for error. But that's something that will be discussed for a very long time on the board. And let's move up to number 9. Sorry for reminding you guys.
You're a pot stirrer.
Shaiheim Brown. Just a little bit of fun. Shaiheim Brown. Okay. The safety position has been very interesting to me. To me, DJ Lundy and Shaiheim Brown, I love that they're right next to each other because it's a guy where an established dude like a DJ Lundy and a Shaiheim Brown, and then who's going to be their running mate? There's a conglomeration of dudes, some veterans, some really talented guys, but the one constant is a Shaiheim Brown, and I think that it's appropriate that he's ranked one spot ahead of Lundy, even though it's the same situation, because I think safety is more important, and I'm also higher on Shaiheim Brown's talent. So Zach had him at 11th, Adam had him at 8th, Brendan had him at 10th, Kev, you had him at 12th, so I think you were the low man of the group. Chris, and of course, you're splitting hairs in the top 10. Everybody recognizes these are all really, they're not going to find like any crazy stuff like we did in some of the other videos. Chris had him at 8th. I had him at 6th. I was the high guy on him. Dane was 10th. Clay was 7. I guess, Kev, talk about Shaiheim Brown, what you see from him. He was earmarked a couple years ago to kind of be like the Jamie Robinson replacement. What do you think his role is going to be in this defense in 2024? And what do you think he's going to excel at?
Yeah, Shaiheim Brown he's an interesting prospect. He's one that they've loved since he stepped foot on campus. He's a rangy guy. I mean, he's 6'2", 6'3", and you can see that he's just been recomping his body since he's been here. He moves really fluidly. I think he's got the big concern with him has always been just kind of feel for the game. Can he be in the right places? Because the athletic profile's there. Mm-hmm. And I think I think they've known that that's going to be something that develops with time. And this is his year to kind of shine. I think he can be everything you want him to be this year. But yeah, like you said, you don't know who he's going to sit next to. And oftentimes safeties are kind of evaluated as a unit. Did a ball get over someone's head? Let's look at the safeties. But I think he's going to be, if this defense is going to be a top 15 unit, like you need it to be, you need Shaiheim Brown to be a stud. And the only reason I have him lower is because I put all of the offensive linemen ahead of him. Because I think
I love that, dude. Did you really put all 5 ahead of him?
Yeah, I just lumped all 5 in the top 11 because I think that this offense goes as far as the offensive line takes him. But like Shaiheim Brown, I think he's I mean, you can speak to him. You're number 6 on him.
Yeah, and my thing is I think he's a very talented player, but to me, it's like you need him to be good. I think that you saw that this is a defense that even with a great defensive line, when a dude like Akeem Dent was out, they got taken advantage of on explosive runs over and over and over again. It was egregious. So I have him at 6 because I do think he's getting better. I'm high on the athletic profile. I do think he can be a Jamie replacement. I think most of the mistakes that he's making are, like you said, positional, kind of being out of position, maybe, I don't know, recognizing coverage, things that I think can be cleaned up, but he needs to be good. Because they need to stop. They cannot give up explosive runs like they did when Akeem Dent was out. They need Shaiheim Brown to finish. They need him to finish and keep a 3-yard run, And they also, I think, are going to need some help in the pass game. And I think if Shaiheim Brown, if Adam Fuller can get creative like he did with Jamie Robinson, I think he can be a real asset in the blitz game. I've always liked Adam Fuller's delayed blitzes with his secondary, and having a guy like Shaiheim Brown can help a pass rush that we're still kind of is a question mark in my opinion. So that's why I have him high. It's a mixture of I like him, but it's like I need him to be good because he's the only. It's like that's why I had DJ Lundy high. It's like this is the only safety I can count on right now, and I need him to be very good to maybe make up for the deficiencies that might come with his running mates. Brendan, you've seen this kid every year since he's been on the field. Do you think he's going to be Jamie Robinson 2.0, or are we all kind of what are you expecting from him personally? You had him at 10th.
You know what's interesting is that with Shaiheim Brown, that's another guy, like another. You mentioned the parallel trade to like DJ Lundy in terms of like the importance and the fall off next to him. I think Kevin mentioned this on a prior show, if I'm not mistaken, that whoever starts at safety next to Shaiheim Brown has never started at safety before. Like it doesn't matter. We don't know who it's going to be. It's going to be Conrad Hussey or Marion Cooper,
Devontae Brown.
I was going to say Damari Brown's his brother. Yeah, it doesn't matter who it is. Like Shaiheim's going to be important in that regard. But like he has gotten his role has increased year over year. He went from someone they thought was going to be like a rotational guy initially, and then he kind of kept getting better, and did eventually fill in that Jamie Robinson role. He was really good last season, and before I think there was an undisclosed injury, and you can kind of see like in looking at some of his splits, like with PFF grades, like a lot of green in the first 6-7 games, and then there was that Wake Forest game, if you guys recall. He had a few missed tackles, was not particularly sharp. Then a lot of yellow and orange afterwards. So the trend there, just kind of following that, is like there was probably something where he wasn't 100%.
Right.
Before the injury, he was one of the better safeties in the ACC, and I think like that's part of the variable with him. Why I had him in the top 10 as well, Trey's like, if he hits, not only is it important for him to be good for the guys next to him and for the whole completion of the secondary and him being a good communicator, all those things you're going to value. But like if he's reaches his threshold, I think he's someone who has more upside than Jamie Robinson does. And Jamie was steady, was really, really good. But the tools that Kev mentioned, the length, the explosiveness, there's physical tools that make him potentially like, day 2, maybe 4th round draft pick type of talent. So he'll get drafted ahead of Jamie Robinson if he plays consistently all season. So like that's what the upside is. I think that's why he's so important to me, is because of what he can be beyond just the floor of him being a solid safety in a room where you need solid play.
Speaking of upside, let's claw our way up this countdown to number 8. Let's see who we have at number 8. Joshua Farmer. Now we're getting to the big boys in the trenches. Zach had him at 6. Adam had him at 6. Brendan had him at 6.
Clay.
Kev at 7th. Yeah, that's it. I wish his little young ass was on
Whoa.
here. So we can talk about that. That's a great. He was giving a lot of crap. Is he in the chat? Have him drop a low to make sure that he's
he's in Germany right now, or is going to be. He's somewhere in Europe. I don't know what time it is.
Trying to get away from the.
Yeah, he knew this was coming.
From this, yeah.
Kev 7th. I'm 8th. Chris is 9th. Dane 8th, and Clay 5th.
I'll speak for Trey. Or Trey. Sorry, I guess I'm cutting you off. So I'm kind of speaking for you. I'll speak for Clay. I think that based on watching his list, I think the Padawan there went very heavy on what he saw in the spring. So there's some recency bias, and Josh Farmer was not able to go in the spring. We didn't see him in the spring showcase. So I think that's.
I understand that. I understand. Adam, I'm going to let you go. That's still the 15, man. I know the 15's interesting. All right. Adam, what about you? Do you see a double-digit number by the young guy's name? Is that getting you all hot? You took some heat a couple episodes ago. Go ahead and just lash out at somebody who's not here to defend themselves. Club the baby.
I don't think it's that hot. I don't think it's that ridiculous. But it's,
Top 10, dude. We all recognize
it's a little low. I mean, it's a little low. It's a little far-fetched. But I'm not going to bash on him. I'm not going to bash on Clay. He's got his own reasons. He's got his beliefs. I'm not going to pull a Trey here and just rip somebody.
Wow. Hey, don't you ever
apart because how many touches they're going to get.
I'm a good teammate. Don't ever.
How many touches is Josh Farmer going to get?
I think if this defense is going to be good, I think we all can sit here and agree that Josh Farmer and Daryl Jackson have to be
dominant.
They really have to be dominant. I mean, they have to be great. I think they're that important to the overall structure and what they want to accomplish defensively. We know they want to play a light box. It's how they want to live defensively. And that's going to start with being run-stopping defensive tackles in the middle. So if they're not that, and then Brendan mentioned about DJ Lundy earlier. Brendan mentioned earlier about DJ Love, so my ADD just want to bring. Brendan mentioned about DJ Lundy earlier and the drop off. You could be looking at a similar drop off behind Josh Farmer and Daryl
At
Jackson.
a more important position too,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah,
with this defense.
much more important position in my opinion.
Adam, in your opinion, do you think Josh Farmer in 2024 is more first half 2023 Josh Farmer or more second half 2023 Josh Farmer? Because there's a strong line of demarcation in the quality of his play. Obviously, the arm injury had a lot to do with it, but it was striking.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say. I mean, I think he's motivated. I think he's going to be motivated to get paid in the NFL draft. So I would assume he's going to be the best version of himself, but he might be asked to play more snaps than he's used to playing too. I mean, they wanted to have a lot of guys. They wanted to rotate a lot of guys. They didn't necessarily get the numbers that they can rely on at defensive tackle for this upcoming season. They didn't go out and get another Braden Fisk that they can plug in there. They don't have a Malcolm Ray sitting down on the bench that they could plug in for a couple hundred snaps if need be. So we're going to see what the guys behind Josh and Daryl do. I do think that Josh is going to be the best version of himself at FSU this upcoming season because he wants to go get drafted.
Brendan, you agree with that? You've seen this kid. You've ridden the Josh Farmer roller coaster for many years now. How do we think his final ride as a Florida State Seminole ends?
I think, well, I mean, I have him up at 6, and basically for the same reasons AB mentioned. There's this floor ceiling drop off if he's not there, but like the ceiling part of if Josh is as good as he can be, is a NFL like draftable guy and someone who's proven to be really impactful, like in spurts at the college level, like against LSU, Clemson last year, like in really big games against pretty solid offensive lines. Like Josh Farmer was really good. He was so hampered by that hand injury, and that club kept getting big. It turned into, it was a wrap, and then it turned into a club,
right,
and he get cert. But his whole like game is predicated on this rip move that he has, his powerful rip move. He's so strong, and he wasn't able to grab an offensive lineman's jersey and throw him, and so his whole game was like rendered kind of useless to an extent. And I give him credit for like battling through it, but now healthy and expected to be like 100% good to go for preseason camp. Like this is a money year for Josh, and so this is an important year, and I'm sure he's gonna be dialed in. And he had looked like he had added a lot of like weight in, I guess before spring, after tour of duty and before spring, and they were happy with where he was at physically, and they thought there was
good weight, not Guthrie's weight.
I think, well, the way they do their offseason program is before the spring is time where you bulk up, you add a lot of muscle and stuff like that, maybe a little bit of like weight that you expect to shed once you get into the explosive part of the conditioning in the summertime. So like, he was trending for what they wanted him to do. They were happy with it.
Storms is a mad scientist. I never question anything with those guys. Wonderful man, wonderful beard. Let's talk about wonderful number 7. Who do we have at 7, Kevin?
That rhymed.
It did accidentally. But let's talk about your darling. Oh, this is fun for me, Kev. Marvin Jones Jr., a guy who came in, a guy that Florida State fans familiar with for a multitude of reasons, came in, maybe started off the spring a little bit slow once he came in, immediately caught on, and now he's captured the hearts, minds, and imaginations of the Florida State fan base, particularly one of the smartest people that I've ever met, and Kevin Little. So, Kevin, you have him as your number 2 most important player, which is, I love that. Even higher than like a Patrick Payton, who we will talk about, spoiled alert, later on this list. You have him at number 2. Brendan had him at 5, so he's really high on him too. Chris had him at 7th. I had him at 10th. Dane 6th. Clay 8th. Zach and Adam at 13th. Kev, why is Adam dumb?
I mean, what's the most important position in football?
The kid.
Is quarterback. The second most important position in football is defensive end. There's a reason that in the past like 10 years.
Would you call it a premium position, Kev?
Wait, let him go, and then Adam, you can rebut. Because
look at the number one
face.
People taken in the NFL draft. People whose like lives are dictated on finding the most important players they can. They find quarterbacks and they find defensive ends. Occasionally they'll pick a left tackle at the number 1 pick in the draft, but more often than not, it's defensive ends and quarterbacks. To me, Marvin Jones Jr. has a higher ceiling than Pat Payton, but he's more of an unknown. And so that gave him a boost for me in the rankings as a significant player, because I thought to me, unknown made you more significant, because if he shows up and he plays out, well, FSU might have the best defensive ends in the country. Like they're looking like they're going to have, a top 5 defensive end room easily. If
the potential, like you said, he's one of those guys we talked about on prior episodes, that if he hits, the ceiling of the team, the ceiling of the defense can be raised, like full stop. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah. And if he doesn't, then it's not going to be there. Like there's a big drop in how good your defense is going to be, whether or not Marvin Jones Jr. plays to his abilities. And that kind of the fact that he's so integral to the performance of the team gave him a boost, where I know that Patrick Payton is going to be who he's going to be. He's going to be probably a top 10 defensive end in the country this year. So I mean, right now I would bet that Pat Payton's going to be the better player, but I gave him a boost just because he can make or break kind of this defense being elite.
Adam, why is Kevin a moron?
I don't know why Kev's a moron. He just is how he is.
In the past 10 years, 3 defensive ends have been taken number 1 in the draft.
You go through the top 10 though. In the past handful of years, I just counted, there's been like double the number of defensive ends taken. So
you
mean in the top 10. In the top 10. Tackle? So you get a freak and you suddenly claim that as the most important position. I mean,
would you rather have an elite defensive end or elite left tackle?
I'd rather have elite left tackle. Okay. I'd actually rather have an elite defensive tackle. I would take Aaron Donald over any defensive end in the league.
All right.
The highest paid defensive tackle in the NFL is Chris Jones, and he makes more than the highest paid offensive tackle, for what it's worth.
And that's kind of interesting. That it's more of like a newer school NFL thought. Is that I feel like the interior pass rush pressure, people are starting to think that that's harder to actually get because it's a lot more rare. Is that seems to be the trend in the NFL? I don't know if I'm reading that wrong, but that's what it seems. At least teams are adopting that. That's at least kind of like the meta right
now. Reflected that.
Teams are starting to pay interior offensive linemen more now too, which is interesting.
Because the defensive tackles are getting better.
Because they're dominating pockets.
Just take the money from the running backs and
so.
Oh no! Okay.
4 running backs. I don't think there's a justification ranking number 2. Like I think that's a bit far fetched. But
13.
I mean, I put him at 13 because I think Pat
Payton's 13.
Because I think Pat Payton's going to take the next step and be what everybody has kind of claimed him to be. Like I think if he's as good as what people think he's going to be, then Marvin Jones Jr. importance drops down just a little bit, right? I mean,
I'd say so.
I think Jones can be better.
I think he's going to be good, but I think that spot's going to be more rotational than Pat. Like I think Pat's going to play quite a bit. He's going to be more of a disruptor. He's going to be much more of a prominent name in that defensive end room than Marvin's going to be this year. So if I think Pat's going to be really good, I think Daryl's going to take a next step. Hint, he's my number 2 ranked player.
I think you've given it away.
I think Josh is going to be a really good player. Like at some point, I just couldn't justify, and I wanted to get some of those. I wanted to get some of those offensive guys in there. So it just dropped Marvin down a little bit for me. But I still think he's going to have a good year. I like what we saw from him in the spring. But like I still thought there were times in the spring showcase where he disappeared. So I don't know if he's at his top level yet. So I couldn't put him in my top 10 yet.
Kev, do you think that he will have a better season, Marvin Jones Jr., than Patrick Payton, as far as like betting on him getting more comfortable in the defense, his physical tools, maybe being the potential to be a more complete defensive end? Do you think that that's going to show itself in the 2024 season or like later maybe in like the National Football League?
Well, I would say that I think his ceiling is higher. If I were to bet right now who has more sacks by the end of the season, I would say it's Pat Payton. But like Marvin Jones Jr., I think has a higher ceiling as an athlete, and if he can live up to his potential, I mean, I think he's a kind of guy that could potentially be a first round defensive end. I mean, you're looking at another guy that if you get another Jermaine Johnson, you get another Jared Verse, he is that kind of body type and that kind of twitch where if he hits, I mean, those are the guys that win football games, like
I get that. No, I get that. The potential thing is untapped, and that's why a lot of guys had like Blake Nicholson higher than people that they think are going to play more snaps, because if they hit, and it's the Conrad Hussey thing, like totally like in a nutshell, it was like the more important because of the talent that they possess. So I think that's
Right.
interesting. I like that conversation.
Pat Payton's been really good, but he hasn't been elite. Like he's PFF has him like a 70 something. PFF has him as what? The 15th best player on our defense last year. I think he's going to definitely hop up. I think he's going to continue to improve. I think he's probably even going to be a top 10, top 15 defensive end in the country. But I think Marvin Jones Jr., if he hits, can be the number one defensive end in the country. I don't think that's going to happen this year, but it could.
How many guys who will be starting for FSU this year have a chance, like a legitimate, somewhat realistic chance to be a first round draft pick? Because I agree with Kev, like the logic there of what MJJ could be if he hits. I don't know how many other first round draft picks you could say in there. What would you say? Chip?
Like, what do you think? Like 3? Because I'd say Thomas, Azai Thomas. I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thomas, I don't know. Jackson's body type is interesting.
Could if he hits,
maybe.
Yeah.
And then I wouldn't say for like Farmer or anybody.
Maybe Pat. Payton,
yeah, Pat. I could see Pat.
Yeah, and he's a back end.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. So 4. He could be one of.
Wait,
like,
where are all
4.
the left tackles that are taken?
If you talk about the defense, he mentioned the defense.
Because this team's loaded with elite
Now
talent.
Darius could get drafted, but probably doesn't have the body type to be a first round. Guy.
I'm with you. It's like you said, on a team where the overall talent level, as far as like that, is lower, but the competency and the depth is pretty good. Like you said, there's not as many guys that you can earmark as like no doubt, like locked in draft prospects. And MJJ is one of them, provided he's a little bit more back into spring, a little bit less some of those clips that we watched at Georgia. That's why I had him at 10th. It was hard for me to shake some of that on-field stuff, but like you said, man, get more at-bats, get more confidence. It did wonders for Jermaine Johnson. We'll see what it does for Marvin Jones. Bookmark this if you're watching. Oh, okay.
I just want to say.
Oh, okay.
I heard a lot of if he reaches his potential.
That's why I had him at 10th. I'm closer to you than
I don't
them.
understand. Kev's always told me this isn't the best player list. This is the most important to this upcoming season list. But now with Marvin Jones Jr., it's all about just how good he could be. So I feel like maybe he went a little bit.
Hence his importance.
Right. To me, and part of importance is if you are good and the team gets better, then that's important.
I love that. This is, guys, go back to the article and read Brendan's criteria of what most important is. Throw it in a blender, and it's different for everybody. And I like what
we brought it to is our chemist, one of the smartest people I know. Be like, if someone's good, that's what.
Listen, you take one molecule away, and an element something completely different. Man, it is sometimes. It's an art and a science. The most important players list, everybody. Absolutely. I agree. Let's go back to number 6 before our minds continue to keep getting twisted into
we're trying to have a little
snacks. Number 6, Daryl Jackson Jr. Of course, Farmer and Jackson only separated by 1 spot. The Bash Bros always hanging together. Zach had him at 8th. Adam already gave away his ranking at number 2. Brendan had him at 8. Kev 3, Chris 14. That's interesting. I respect the big man's opinion. I wonder, maybe Brendan, if you have some insight. Oh man, guys, no, you didn't. I got what Kevin was saying. If you're watching the YouTube, you can see the comments. God, you guys are brutal. Chris had him at 14th. Like I said, I'd like to hear that logic. I had him at 4th, Dane 7th, Clay 11th, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
This is your guy. This is your second over. I love it. But you did say interior defensive line over offensive tackle.
No,
you have him number 2.
Not my most defensive tackle is the one.
That's what I'm saying. So that's why you have him number 2 over like an offensive tackle.
Yeah.
Fine. No pretzels.
Oh, these pretzels are making me thirsty.
All right. Well, you're thirsty for Daryl Jackson. Tell me why.
I just think if he's at his upside, which I've never been against talking about talent in this top 40 list, if he's playing at his peak performance, I think we sat here and did a video when he committed to come play Florida State about him potentially being a Chris Jones type of impact defensive lineman.
Yeah, when we were experimenting,
I can't say that and then come off of that. So, if he's at his peak with a light box defense, he's a guy that can impact the pocket as a pass rusher. He's a guy that can be dominant in the run game, and that's why he's 2 for me, because I think that he can be the most important player on this defense for them.
What do you think is his most important asset as a football player?
Well, his strength, his length, and he can
soaking up double teams, splitting them, yeah. Especially because Florida State is going to play a lot like Miami, Florida, Notre Dame. They're going to come at you with a lot of double teams,
duo teams that are going to want to double, and he's a guy that can soak up a double team.
And especially like you said with the linebackers, with one proven guy and then a bunch of you don't want to get them just pummeled by like guards and tackles all over the place. Brendan, I want to hear your opinion, but do you have any insight on why Chris has him 14th as somebody who is, as a consensus, we think is going to be the second best defensive lineman on the team?
Yeah, I don't want to speak for Chris, but I guess that's exactly what I'm going to do. I think Chris is very much so. His list to me seemed very predicated on how good he thinks someone is, kind of like an overall rating type of deal.
Okay.
I think he had Kyle Morlock a little bit lower than us. There's a couple times where it's just like, I just don't know if I trust that guy to be, if it was like an overall rating thing, like an NCAA or whatever. Yeah. So I think that's kind of where it is with Daryl's. Just there's unknowns, and it looks really fun at practice at times. There was actually a couple nice plays against Georgia last year, and then some not so great ones. That's whatever that game was. What that game was, it's tough to take much of anything away from it. So I think that was Chris's logic. I had him at 8, which was probably the lowest of all of us, but like between 2 and 8 for me were more or less interchangeable. So I think AB's logic is sound there. If only applied it to Marvin Jones Jr., they're kind of similar players.
That's no pretzel. We're not talking about logical consistency. Do not ever mention
me thirsty.
No logical consistency talk. Everybody has their own rankings and their own beautiful children, and they love them in their own unique way. Let's move on to number 5. Who do we have at number 5?
Wait, can I just say something about Daryl?
Of course you
Daryl
can.
Jackson.
Oh boy.
I don't know. The dude's built different. This is something you don't see on TV.
You have mentioned this a lot, yeah.
You go to practice, and in a team last year when you had, Braden Fisk get drafted pretty high, like Daryl Jackson stood out. He is a guy. He is 3 inches taller than anybody else on the defensive line. His shoulders are wider. He holds 330 pounds well. The guy's built different, and so far this staff has had a tremendous track record of getting the guys built different to perform at their best capabilities in college. Johnny Wilson was built different. Jared Verse was built different, and when they came in, they needed to be processed. They needed to be developed, and they were. And I think that's going to happen for Daryl Jackson. I think the Georgia game's not a good showing. 1, because he's going against some really good offensive linemen, and 2, they didn't have any depth for the defensive tackle game. Defensive tackles that game. They couldn't rotate them in and out. And for any of these guys, if you can get 20 good reps over 40 less good reps, it's going to change the perception of how fans see you, of the plays you're able to make. So I think that's going to be different this year. I think he's going to be able to get rotated in and out, and I think you're going to see that build start to play after being developed by Coach Storms for 2 years.
First game of the year, too, for him. So I'm with you. Good points. Good points all around. Number 5. Let's go top 5. And we are talking about Malik Benson. Man, you want to talk about a player that is so important because he has to be as opposed to what he's done in his career. This is the hallmark of why the most important list is not the best player list. And I had that in my ranking because I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know with this kid. Zach had him at 5. Adam had him at 4th. Brendan 7. Kev 4th. Chris 4th. I had him at 11th, which is looking pretty egregious now. But Dane's 5th. Clay's 3rd. Listen, I know he has to be your guy. I don't know if he will. It's so much of a gamble, and there's so much riding on him. I'm betting on the run game. I'm betting on maybe DJ being able to manufacture yardage, even if Malik doesn't hit with some like deep crossers and like a by committee approach. I just haven't seen enough out of Malik Benson or what I heard in spring to anoint him. Like if I knew he was going to be a true, no doubt, he's your number 1 guy, leader in targets, yards, receptions, touchdowns, all those categories or most of those categories, I would have him top 5 too. I'm just not confident that he's going to be that. I'm really not. Now, I haven't been out at practice, but I've talked to you guys, and I got the tone and tenor of the practice reports, and I know you guys all have him really high, but I don't think that you guys think that either. I think your list right now, this ranking is reflective of, I sure hope he's damn well going to be that, because I knew if I lie detected all of you fools right now, you would not say with 65% certainty that he is like, oh, yeah, he's the number 1 guy. He's going to assert himself.
The question isn't will he be the number 1 guy? It's should he be the number 1 guy?
Or what is the offense going to look like with him as the number 1 guy? Because he will be the number 1 guy.
You think so? Like when it's all said and done, you're confident that he is ready to assume that number 1 wide receiver role in a run-heavy play.
Whoa.
I don't know if I would say that he's ready.
You said he's going to be.
Yeah.
Who the hell else could be?
That's a distinction. He's going at the end of the season is going to be, I would bet handsomely that Malik Benson is going to be the most volume wise, like your most used wide receiver in terms of targets. What the offense looks like with that is TBD. I will say that a few points. One, FSU is really confident with him. They really like him. And that's been consistent across the board, and not just in the spring, not just things we heard out of tour duty, but like even this summer, like they think he is going to be a high level player.
Little T on
Tuesday night. Got some leaves brewing. Yeah, they think that's like an NFL dude. Whether I can't confidently say I share that opinion. Now I will say that he got progressively better. Well, he was really good at the start of spring, had a little bit of a lull, and then just ended the spring on fire. Like the final maybe 4 or 5 practices were excellent. You saw it in the spring showcase. Yeah, he had a sprained ankle. We'll be back for the season. Like he's good to go. He's going to be good. Like to what extent though? Like whether it's number 1 wide receiver and like guy who leads a top 20 to 30 offense, good, or someone who's should be your number 2, but you just don't have a true number 2. That's I don't know. Pretzel. I don't know.
What about you guys think? Anybody else worried that he's the guy who's rolling in as your number 1? And it's one of those things too with these transfers. Player progression is not linear, and transfer portal player integration is not linear. There has been many instances of guys that came in and it was like Dylan Gibbons came in. Whatever. He didn't look too impressive at the beginning, but then once you actually start to get the hang of this offense as a receiver, the more time you're in it, he became a very good player for Florida State. So like you said, there were some ups and downs over spring. Maybe I exaggerated a little bit more of the downs. That's what stuck out to me because this position really worries me a lot. But who knows, man? He could integrate and he could take off. I mean, they got Keon integrated real damn quick, but that's a hell of a talent.
I ranked 3 running backs 10, 11, and 12. I think that gives you a great idea of how I feel about what this passing game might be this year. So
yeah,
I'm concerned. I'm worried about Malik Benson being your number 1. I think he's certainly got the talent to be
Yeah,
a
not
really,
questioning the
really-
talent for sure.
I don't know if he's got the like a star ceiling, like a true alpha number one, but I think he's certainly got the capability to be borderline. So it was great to see. I guess he was out working out with DJ out in Cali with some of the other guys. That was really good to see. Good to see that they are taking advantage of the opportunities to throw with DJ. I think that there's a lot that needed to get ironed out with that quarterback receiver relationship with that entire group. I think that some of the stuff in hindsight, looking back on it, some of the stuff that we saw from guys like Tron, I think some of that comes from just breaking in a brand new quarterback in there for them. So
That's a good point.
I'm concerned about him being your number one, but I had to put him number 4 because
He's your number one.
he's got to be. There's not enough. You can't bank on Tron, and I don't think you can bank on Hakeem yet. Like, I think Hakeem's going to be really, really, really good, and I think we see an improved version of him this year, but he's not ready to be your alpha yet. So you need Malik Benson to be it. He's a guy that can burn. He's a guy that you can throw the ball deep to off of play action. He can be like, I think he can be a better Pokey. My man Pokey. He can be a better version of that.
Pour one out.
They need to get it. I mean, they need to see it through though, and he needs to see it through. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I also think we need to keep a perspective. The passing game at FSU was actually worse last year compared to 2023 or 2022 as a whole, and that was like Keon's obviously a stud, obviously a great wide receiver, probably the best wide receiver we've had here in a while, and the passing game as a whole wasn't necessarily better with him. So oftentimes it feels like there's a lot of variance in how these offenses have to come together, how he gels with DJ, and how they both gel with the offense as a whole. So like it's hard to predict this stuff, but yeah, I think I'm 100% with you guys. He's a very talented guy, but you need someone like Hakeem to step up and be number 2 to allow him to get the matchups he needs to succeed.
There you go. Let's get to the kind of the oh duh. We're starting getting to the oh duh kind of portion of the list. So we're just we're going to start glorifying some players up here because I think the suspense is starting to just kind of fall away a little bit. But let's get to number 4. I think we know the yeah, okay. Yeah, this is it. No duh. Okay. Azai Thomas. Freak, ascending, going to be one of your starting cornerbacks. One of the few players on this team, the handball with like real NFL, like first round draft potential. Zach had him at 4th. Adam had him at 7th. Brendan, number 2 overall. So he was your number 2 guy. Kev 6th. Chris 5th. Oh, Chris was 3rd. I'm 5th. Dane 3rd. Clay 4th. Brendan, second best player on the team. I mean, we think that this is the guy. Like, he's been consistently getting better. Had some issues with communication, just like kind of growing pains. We saw that when they'd have he could take advantage on some of the outbreaking routes, I think in the goal line or some of the things that I remember of on the film review. But we think that he's going to clean those up. We think he's going to be a dependable. We think he's going to be spectacular. And he's got a good partner with Ventrell Cypress that kind of let him shine because he's got a competent dude. Is that what your line of thinking was, having him at number 2?
I didn't want to overthink it when I was putting the list together. And again, like the 2 for 8 for me was somewhat, fairly interchangeable. But like the reason I put AZ at 2 is honestly, I think he's the best player on your team. Like from just a talent standpoint, I think he's the best player on your roster. Cornerback is a premium position, maybe not as premium as left tackle or defensive end or whatever, Kevin AB want to argue about, but it is up there as one of the more important positions. And I think he's your most just purely talented player with that talent manifesting in production. He was really good last season and his role expanded throughout the year. He's someone who they started him off as like a dime defensive back. And by the end of the year, like he was overtaking Ventrell like with starting reps against Louisville in the ACC championship game. It was awesome in that game too, by the way. Like his performance gets kind of swept under the rug because of some of the other awesome performances in that game. Obviously, he was right up there as one of the more impactful guys. And what was so cool is we saw that transition into the spring where there was this confidence to AZ. And people who, Azai Thomas, like he's not super outspoken or brash, very conservative in how he carries himself. and you start to see like just a little bit more exuberance and confidence with how he carried himself throughout the spring camp. And I thought like day in, day out, he was your best player. When he did lose reps, like he forced really good plays to beat him. There's just a lot to like. I think he's mature. I think he's going to carry. With the defense, there's some guys in that defense who are going to be starters who I don't know how mature they are. Like, we're going to have to see. That's part of this team to see how good this defense can be, who lives up to that. I don't have that concern with Azai Thomas. I think he's really good. He's going to live up to his end of the bargain. So yeah, that's why. There's a lot of reasons why. I'm super high on him as a person. I like the trajectory he's on, and he's just a really good football player.
I think there should be a lot of consensus on these next like 4 guys. So I'm going to give like a player to each person because I think we're all going to kind of agree. My take on Azai Thomas before we move on to number 3, he's one of the few dudes on the roster that is like an oh crap moment. Like that guy is physically capable of doing some things that are eye-popping, even for somebody who's watched Florida State football their entire life, like myself. He is a difference maker on the field, and I'm with you, man. I totally get. The argument for him being the most talented player on the actual team. Like he could be he's your number 2 most important. If you rank most talented, he'd probably be number 1 from what it sounds like. I could field an argument and maybe be swayed that he's the most talented player on the entire team. Appropriate to have him as a cornerback in the top 4. Let's go to 3 because I want to see who wins the offensive tackle versus defensive end, positional importance aggregated, and Kevin wins by a little bit. Oh, Kev, you had him low. That's funny.
Yeah, it's because Kevin back to the voting box there.
This isn't going to be your guy because I want this to be kind of celebratory. So this is going to be Adam's guy. So Darius Washington, Zach had him 2nd overall. I had him 2nd overall too because I don't know where I because obviously I have to host with these 2 guys all the time. So I don't know where I lie in the offensive tackle versus defensive end like debate on what's more important. But I think Darius Washington's a better player than Patrick Payton. So that's why I had him number 2. Kind of like your Azai Thomas thing. I'm very impressed with him. But anyway, Adam had him number 5, Brendan 4, Kevin at 9th, Chris 5th. Like I said, I'm 2nd. Dane had him 2nd. Clay had him 5th. Adam, offensive line expert, dude. What do you like about Darius Washington?
I want to give him to Brendan. This is Brendan's guy.
Oh,
this is
okay.
Brendan's guy. That's
so magnanimous of you. All right, well, go
this
ahead.
is Brendan's guy. I know when to step back and step away.
The floor is yours, purple shirt man.
Wow, I wasn't prepared for this moment. Yeah. Wow, as the president of the Darius Washington fan club,
Jesus God,
his progression. We've talked about progression a few times here, Trey. It's like the staff can develop players, contrary to some narratives out there. Darius Washington's growth from where he was as a true freshman in 2019 to like where he's developed into, and just again talking about same thing with Azai Thomas, like the level of confidence that Darius has carried himself with, like it's just so different. And it's one of the more like fulfilling parts of doing this job is like you get to, because of the access that we get to the program, is you get to actually see the progression happen in real time to some extent. And Darius Washington, I think, exemplifies that progression. He went from a guy who struggled in pass pro and didn't really have he was a tackle, but you didn't know quite like what he was going to develop into. And he ended up becoming this super malleable, versatile chess piece for you on the offensive line because he can start at center and was really good at that last season. He can play guard comfortably. He started at both tackle spots last year, like legit, and was good at every single position he tried at. And I think that's probably why the value is so high for all of us. Why is it a consensus top 10 guy? Is because he can play multiple spots for you on the offensive line effectively. But it's probably your left tackle here as a redshirt senior and a guy who's had to kind of overcome injuries and growing pains to get to this point. So yeah, I mean, that's him being in the top 3 is really cool because there were people a few years ago who didn't know if he should be on the 2 deep. And now here he is one of your best players. And that's a testament to his hard work and what the coaching staff has done with him.
He's had 2 healthy off seasons. He had one. The first one was, I think, 2 years ago. And this will be the second, maybe 3. But he hasn't had a lot of healthy time here at Florida State. When he has had a healthy offseason, he's made massive leaps as a football player. He was first team all conference last year. I don't think it's far fetched to think that he's in the All-American race this season upcoming, assuming health.
Mike Norvell's talking about him as an All-American. Like they're putting they're putting his name on it. He's on the front. Where do I have my Phil Steele?
Like, is he an NFL? Is he a first round NFL guy? No, he's not. He doesn't have those traits. But the thing he's got is he's just a badass. And
He's a damn
you
good
look on-
football player. Yeah.
He is. He's
And he
athletic.
can
as
play on
hell.
Sundays, like because he can do everything well. But
Yes,
yeah,
he'll play. He'll be a Sunday football player.
Yeah.
He'll be a guy that will be in a room because he can play all 5 positions along the offensive line. He's one of those dudes that you could just depend on day in and day out. And like I had him at 5, and it was just because I felt like I needed to put Malik Benson over him because they need Malik Benson to be so good. Like, day in, day out, just what you're going to get out of Darius Washington. Maybe I devalued that a little bit by putting him at 5. If I could have put him at, if I'd have been smart, I'd have put him at 2 because I just think he's that important to that offensive line group, just because of how dependable he is.
And he's so just the example, the paragon of like a Mike Norvell player. Climb in response, climb in response, climb in response. That's all he's done his entire career. Whatever was asked of him, whatever injuries befell him, he's a panhandle kid. And like I said, I think, yeah, dude, I don't know if I want to say I expect him to be an All-American because those are always wonky, those like vote him in deals. But man, the fact that he's on a watch list from where he came from like the pedigree that he was recruited from, like awesome kid, dude. Great story. One of the best, one of the absolute best of the Mike Norvell era. And I can't wait for him to have just an awesome season where he gets more magazine covers. Actually, that's probably not going to, I don't know how many actual magazines there are still left. Either way, I can't wait for him to get the national prominence and recognition that kid deserves. Awesome kid, awesome player. Let's get to number 2. And I think we know who it is because number 1 is a quarterback. All right, Patrick Payton. What a unique football player. Another guy, another dude like fringe 4, high 3, dude that was recruited by Nebraska. And they've turned him into an ultra productive, a uniquely productive defensive end. I cannot wait. There's whatever like a pass deflection record is at Florida State. I don't know how long they've been keeping that stat, but my God, that guy's got to be at the top of the list. Zach had him at number 3. Adam had him at 3. Brendan 3. Kev 5. Chris 2, I'm 3, Dane's 4, Clay's 2. These are all top 5 guys. Kev, when you watch Patrick Payton on film, what really stands out to you? And what about do you have any concerns now that he's the alpha? He's not the complementary piece. He's not the change of pace. He's the guy that you need to bring the quarterback down, not so much maybe bat the ball down when Jared Verse has the guy running for his life.
I mean, I think when you're talking about Pat Payton, you're talking about a guy who, one, has the build, so he checks that box. I think he's got the explosiveness necessary to get around the edge. I think he moves well in space. I think most importantly, if I'm talking about physical capabilities, it's his bendability. I think he can bend around the edge as well as anybody, in his length, which he uses both to get to the quarterback and to knock down passes. But most importantly with Pat Payton is he's we highlighted this in his high school film years ago. He's always had a great feel for the game. He knows where to be. He knows how to get himself in a position to make an impact even when he can't make it around the edge. He's a guy that tries to impact the play every down. I think if you're looking for a place for him to improve, I think some of the run game stuff could improve. There were a couple of times where he was slow to break up to wrong arm a counter coming his way or something like that, or a missed tackle or two. But really, you're looking at those elite pass rushing and pass affecting traits that he has in his length, his bendability, and his brain.
Yeah, high football IQ, and the bendability thing is funny. The way that he sheds contact from the offensive tackle with like a smooth dip of the shoulder. Awesome stuff, man. Awesome stuff, and it allows him to basically teleport to the quarterback. I agree with everything you said. It just another great story of development, unique traits. Not another guy that looks like him on the football team, and there's a chance that he's, like he said, one of the best defensive ends in the conference and the country. Like if he takes another step, which he's consistently done every single year, sky's the limit, and that's why we have him number 2. All right, number 1. Drum roll, please.
Alex Mastromano.
Fitzsimmons. It's DJ Uiagalelei. And everybody have it number one. And I think that's a function because he's the quarterback. But I also think I'll speak for a little bit for DJ first before we all just kind of jump in. This kid is so massively underrated by the general college football population as a whole. And I know nobody's a real sicko and watches Pac-12 after dark anymore. But the reclamation, well, now you can't, RIP, it's real RIP. But the reclamation stuff that he did at Oregon State, like, would you believe me if I told you that he had a higher QBR last year than Jordan Travis, a guy that was a fringe Heisman contender? Would you believe me? Because that's the truth. Mm-hmm. This is a guy that the things that he does, the deficiencies are, number one, he's cleaned them up as much as he possibly can, but there will be some accuracy issues. We're flirting around like 60%-ish accuracy. But the things that he does, the long ball, the durability, the being able to pick up tough yardage, just him being a plus in the running game, meshes so well with what Mike wants to do. And Tony Tokars and Mike have shown, and Alex Atkins too, obviously, have shown such a good job of developing and catering offenses to their quarterbacks. This is going to be his year. Now, what does that look like his year? I don't know, like maybe 26 touchdowns and like 5 interceptions and a couple running. I don't know. So I think that the disrespect that he is still getting from not even just one bad year at Clemson with a Mickey Mouse offense, which has been shown to like not lend itself well. Like people have to like deprogram Clemson quarterbacks in the NFL. I think that the disrespect he's getting at a national level is going to make people look like complete idiots at the end of this year. I think that he's going to have a great year. I think that he's going to be a massive positive for Florida State. I think that he's going to be a great locker room influence. I think he's going to start the Polynesia to Florida State, just cement that pipeline. I hope that is rock solid in stone forever. And I think that the DJ Uiagalelei experiment is going to be a resounding success. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the kid. And I think even more of it has to do with how much what he does fits perfectly with like Mike's wheelhouse. Do we all disagree, or did the rest of you three have him at number one because he's the quarterback of the team, which is fair on a most important list?
No, I mean, I think it's fair. Everything you said is fair. Connor R from Twitter kind of said, like how much RPO are they going to do him? How much are they going to run him? Like I think that there's a legitimate question about how much they're going to commit to running and utilizing DJU as a rusher in this version of the offense for this upcoming season. And if they're going to commit to it, I think the value of him goes up exponentially, just because of what we've seen him be in the past. If they decide not to, then I think they're really hamstringing themselves and not going to get the best version of DJU out of him. I mean, in the end, like the quarterback's always going to be number one. You can't have anybody else there. Unless there's just, you've got one guy that's just such a freak that they're just that much head and shoulders above everybody else. Like it's got to be your quarterback.
And Adam, in my opinion, to the running point, there's no reason not to. He's shown to be durable. You're going to have a good offensive line. He's only there for a year, and you're not afraid to play the backup.
Yeah.
And this is a year where I don't want to say that there's like, you're playing with house money because there's no expectations. No, you want to make the playoffs and contend for a conference championship, but it's not like an all-in year like last year. Play the kid to the best of his ability, and let's just see what shakes out, man. If some of these kids hit, like Kev mentioned, like the Marvin Jones Juniors and the Blake Nicholsons and the Conrad Hussies, along with a DJ Uiagalelei that's trucking people and a Malik Benson that's catching 75-yard bombs, I don't want to play Florida State in the first round of the playoff.
I mean, you went on and got him. You targeted him. And yes, there was some flirtation and recruiting of Cam Ward, who ended up at Miami. But you were on DJU. There was some commitment to him, obviously. And then after you got him, it felt like you built your entire offense around him and around his strengths, his ability to throw the ball vertically. You got bigger on the interior of the offensive line strategically to be able to do some of the things with him, whether that be running the ball with him or running stuff that he can run off of action wise. So you are committed and dedicated to what he can be for your offense this year, throwing the deep ball off of play action. You're fully invested in the DJU experience.
Yeah. So
what do you think? I am interested in your thoughts as the known DJ skeptic.
So the question with DJ is going to be, he clearly took a step up. So year one, he wasn't good at Clemson. Year two, he was okay at Clemson. Year three, he was great at Oregon State. So the question is, how much is that jumping up in terms of passer rating due to playing weaker defenses in the Pac-12? And how much is due to him being put in a position with a scheme that really fit his strengths? And how much is due to him being a better quarterback than he was the year before? I think those are the three factors. If we're talking about the first two factors, well, the first one you can't replicate because you're not playing a Pac-12. The second one you can kind of replicate, but you're only going to change your offense so much. And the third one is what you're hoping for as an FSU fan base, that was just a natural progression of him becoming a better quarterback, him taking another step forward, and he's going to carry all of that progression into being a Florida State quarterback. And depending on the variance of those three factors will kind of depend on who you're getting in DJU.
As a not a counterpoint to the first point, but as like some extra nuance there, playing worse defenses with much worse surrounding talent than what he had at Clemson.
That's true, but Oregon State had a pretty decent offense the year before he showed up. But yes.
Yeah, and I would actually contend. Sorry, Trey, to do this. I would take Oregon State's supporting cast right now. I think over Florida State's this year.
No, I'm talking about when he was at Clemson.
Oh, Clemson,
going from Clemson to Oregon
Gotcha.
State.
To where he was, gotcha. Yeah, because the Clemson, you can make the argument that
the skill talent that they amass every year is, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, no, he. So it's interesting. I think Florida State, going back to what they built around him, like I think they feel extremely comfortable with the way this offense is built around his strengths. And this is one of the reasons why, to the point of talent, and like, yes, there's unknowns at like the 9 wide receiver, but the way that the run game is going to be composed, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's going to play off of what he does. The addition of Malik Benson, AB's, pokey 2.0, with a little bit more juice, or potentially a lot more juice, is going to fit in with what DJU does well. And even just the way Mike Norvell has some of his offenses that you guys have touched on have operated before, it all makes sense. But this is why when they were going after DJ and Cam Ward, I don't think it was like a secret that they really liked Cam Ward, but they didn't want to wait anymore. As part of what happened is they didn't want to keep waiting. They wanted to build an offense around a quarterback in mind, and they wanted to be able to do it with time remaining in the transfer portal to get someone like a Malik Benson or even some defenders, because people were asking questions like, who's the quarterback going to be? You didn't have an answer to it. So you didn't want to wait for that. And Miami went and added a bunch of guys in the spring portal. We'll see how it works out. But like the idea of adding DJ Uiagalelei was about stability and finding stability in that moment in the wintertime and into the spring. But also in the transition year from Jordan Travis to what will be a multi-year starter for FSU, whether it's Brock Glenn or Luke Kromenhoek. DJ used that kind of that bridge, and that's not a slight on him. That's who he is. He's steady and sturdy and has become a consistent quarterback up to this point in his career. If you're into numerology and nerdy, number 4 means stability. It's a number that signifies stability, and that's what number he's wearing is 4. There's an element of this that makes a lot of sense to me, to where I think he's going to be a stabilizing presence. I don't know what the ceiling is, but I think the floor is raised with him because of what he did at Oregon State last year, even what he did at Clemson 2 years ago. He's going to bring competent play to the quarterback room, and he gives you an identity. To me, and that's really important.
Well said, my friend.
Thank you.
So before we end this, the value of this is, number one, the fantastic content that you guys just get to soak up through your eyes and ears. You're very lucky, and I hope all you viewers are appreciating this, because this is truly the pinnacle of off-season lists, and you will get it every year. For me, the main value that I get from it, other than entertaining the best fans in the entire world, is that it really forces you to take a deep dive and analyze the quality and the construction of this roster. And you've all done it. We've all done it. Brendan, testify. What do you guys think? Are you more worried? Are you less worried? Where are you thinking about what do you think that the realistic goals for this team can, should, and probably will be? Who wants to take that first after analyzing the entire roster? What type of team is this? And is there an analog or a comparison to like a years past Florida State team that you could give people like, hey, you should expect like this is kind of like the blank Florida State Seminoles. I have a year in my head that I'm thinking, but let's see what you guys think.
Let's yell it out at the same time on 3.
Okay.
Hold on. What are we yelling out? What are we yelling out?
What team does the 2024 Florida State Seminoles remind you of, like Seminole teams of the past? Like what they're going to be? I have one that I'm thinking right now. So are we going to yell it out loud, or okay?
All right, let's yell them all out. Let yell them all out.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
2015. Did you say 2015, Trey?
I said 2015.
Yes.
So
AB 2012. Stupid.
to me, 2012 was like they were like an all-in year. Yeah, I think they're an all-in year. To me, this was like a transitional. To me, it was like after 2013, 2014, you bring in a bridge quarterback like an Everett Golson. You still got you've got a lot of talent. You don't know exactly who's going to step up. You're waiting to see that 9-10 win range. To me, I think it's like 2015, but with a better quarterback and a more flexible offensive mind. Maybe not as much team talent because Mike Norvell hasn't recruited all the positions like Madman, like, Jacket Jimbo. He hasn't. I mean, that's not fair. Jimbo was like on generational runs in the late 20s, in the 2010s, 2011s, all that sort of thing. But I find the staff continuity, I find the staff to be much more stable. They got a way better strength and conditioning, a way more stable strength and conditioning program. I like DJU as a quarterback over Everett Golson, and I like the synergy of the offense and the pieces that they have. So I think 2015 with greater potential, 10-win football. I feel like 10-2 is where I'm standing with this team right now. That's how I feel about it. And with what they lost and what they're adding in recruiting, not at all positions, and the guys they're developing, if I got 10 wins this year, I feel really damn good about it because I think it's a little dip, like a cyclical dip. And then, like you said, Adam, I think they're back on to shooting for all in again. How do you guys feel?
Would you take 10 wins? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kev.
The amount of times I've gone through this list and thought, man, they need this guy to hit.
Mm-hmm.
Man, they need this guy to hit. Man, they need this guy to hit. And that's not a great feeling. Like if this staff hadn't such a track record of actually developing players by this point in time and actually having those guys that you need to hit, then I'd be feeling a lot less optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sitting here thinking like, yeah, I think Daryl Jackson might hit. Yeah, I think Marvin Jones might hit. Yeah, one of those linebackers is probably going to step up. Cam Riley is probably going to be put in a position to succeed. Like the amount of like trust that the fact that the staff is prioritized player development means that in a season like this, when you're unsure because there's so many times where you're like, well, I don't know. I haven't seen much of this player, but the coaches like him. The coaches trust him. You have some amount of they've bought themselves some amount of leeway. I mean, I'm with you, Trey. That's what gets me to 10 wins because there is a lot of unknown on this roster. But I agree with you. 10 wins is about where I feel.
Adam?
Yeah, I think I'm in the 10-ish, 9-10 wins range. I know I'm normally the pessimistic one, but the staff's proven that they can develop. The strength staff's proven that they can do a great job of getting guys prepared for a long season. mean, you are still playing in the ACC. It's not a great conference. There's not a lot of great teams that are necessarily invested in winning football games. I think you've got to beat. There's 3 games on this for 4 games on the schedule for you this year that are going to define your season. Clemson, Notre Dame, Florida, and Miami. So you find a way to go 2-2 in that series of 4 games, and you're probably looking at 10-2. If you make a couple mistakes and have a couple slip ups and don't progress the way you should, then we're having a different conversation at the end of the year. But I like to believe that this staff is they've proven themselves on game day to get the most out of their situation, and I don't think that trend's going to go away.
Brendan?
What I know about this team is this program, I should say, are the points that Kevin Abey just made about the development, right? This staff develops at a really high level. They coach and game plan at a really high level, and they're going to put guys in a good position. I know that. I know that the athletic threshold for this team is as high as it's ever been. That's the athletic testing, data points that they have, and that's real. That's stuff that they track, and they're confident. They're not just throwing that out there. I know there's a lot of question marks. And I know that there is a ton of optimism internally about they really like what I'll put it this way. I haven't heard anyone really express much concern, and the staff usually shoots us pretty straight, and they've bought a lot of credibility in my estimation with that. When they didn't know how good they were going to be in 2021, they told us that. They said, it might be a 5-6 win team. That's what it was. And then they said it was going to get better, and it got better. And then last year they were really confident in what they were going to be, and they would put a number on it, but they knew they'd be really good, and they were really good. And that's where I can't get over is they bought up this credibility. I know what the numbers say of athletic testing. I know how the coaching staff feels, and yet I feel this disconnect to where I'm struggling to see it living up to a point of it being really good or great, which is where I think the expectations are internally. I think it'll be a good team. I think you're going to win a good amount of football games. I think Vegas line is 9.5.
Yeah.
Man, if you got to 10 wins, I would take that right now and would call it a day.
So would I. Yeah, I would too.
But that's a disconnect. So I don't think the coaching staff would secretly tell you that. And I think that's what I'm struggling with. So I don't know what I'm missing a part of this equation. I don't think I'm pessimistic on the season. I think 9 wins is reasonable. Some people in the chat are saying that 8 wins would be a disaster. I don't think that would be. I know optically how it would be perceived by some nationally. I think this exercise to reflect on what Kev said. There's a lot of what ifs, and just generally covering sports as long as I have it, or just following it. When there's a lot of questions, the more questions you have going into the season, the better the chances are that you're going to have some stumbles along the way. So I think that's kind of where my skepticism is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. When there are a lot of question marks like that 2015 Florida State team, that's when you get a Georgia Tech thing happen. You know what I'm saying? So I'm with you. There's more coin flips on the roster than you would like, but I tend to agree with Kevin is that you start to kind of shift a lot of those coin flips in your favor when you start adding in the coaching and development factors. But we will see. It will make for wonderful off-season discussion content, and you can only see it if you take advantage of the Firecracker Trademark Register Copyright Trademark 2024 sale on Noles247.com. $1 for the first month, 50% off the entire year. Drink your Chattanooga whiskey, sell your house with the Turner Group, and have a good, happy, safe. Don't blow off any appendages when you're drinking the Chattanooga whiskey. Let's keep all of our digits and have a wonderful day celebrating America, and keep chopping.
Shout out Pokey.
Always.